The scientific revolution was a period in Europe between the 16th and early 17th centuries. Anatomists made a contribution with a physical description of the brain. They used terms like cerebellum and cerebrum, but they didn't really know about its function. Some relevant discoveries were:
At 1545, Andrés Vesalius published De Humani Corporea Fabrica, where he explained how the brain nerves work, and he said that the important functions of the brain are located in the ventricles. An important aspect that helped a lot the advances made in science in the 17th century was the invention of instruments of measurement.
At 1649, René Descartes proposed the idea of the brain working and functioning like a machine. The nerves carry motor and sensory information to the ventricles of the brain. He also concluded that the pineal gland acted as a valve controlling the flow of information to the body or mind.
At 1664, an Oxford professor, Thomas Willis, wrote the first monograph on brain anatomy and psychology, which he called Cerebranatomy. His work stated that the cerebral hemispheres were the ones responsible for determining thought and action, and that they were completely separated from the brain's part that control motor function like moving and walking.
Also, something really important was that some terms related to the brain, such as neurology, hemisphere, lobe, pyramid, corpus striatum, and peduncle, were added to the vocabulary, and the functions of some of the parts of the brain were determined. Discoveries made by Thomas Willis.
The Industrial Revolution was a period in the 18th century in which fundamental changes occurred. In this time, there were a lot of discoveries that showed that the brain was a very complex organ and that most of its components had different functions. Also, psychology experiments and discoveries were made.
The body was already mostly understood by that time, but the diseases were still unknown. The knowledge of the brain improved a lot, not only at the physical and functional part, but also psychological discoveries of the brain diseases occurred, such as Parkinson and schizophrenia. Some relevant discoveries were:
in 1791, Luigi Galvani, Italian physiologist, concluded by experimenting with frogs and wires that when twitching, the electricity flows from the muscles to the nerves, becoming the first step to understand the electrical basis of the neutral activity.
In 1806, Charles Bell, Scottish surgeon, said that the brain had many different nerves, and depending on the location was the function it had.
And this is what we nowadays know about the brain. The brain is the organ that serves as the center of the nervous system. It's found in the cranial cavity, which locates at the skull. It has many functions that go from mental, such as thinking and memory, to motor functions, such as breathing and making the heartbeat.
Breathing is a motor function of the brain, and it mainly happens at the lungs. The heart beating, another motor function of the brain, happens at the heart.
The best anatomical plane to study the brain is the sagittal plane because it's the one that shows best the internal structure of it.
The brain of the fetus is the last organ to develop, and the process is completed at the end of the third trimester. At week 3, the brain begins to form, and at week 21 from 40, the brain continues to grow and it starts establishing connections between nerve cells.
The main parts of the brain are the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem.
The cerebrum, which is the largest part of the brain and controls the most important mental functions, such as thinking and memory, it is divided into two hemispheres, in which the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and vice versa.
Also, the hemispheres are divided in 4 parts called lobes. The frontal lobe controls thought, memory, planning, problem solving, and behavior. The parental lobe is responsible for language, helping us form words and thoughts. Also, it deals with touch and recognize sensations, and it helps us be aware of our body positions. The temporal lobe helps us understand and process what we hear. It's involved with how we learn and organize information. It's also responsible for emotions and emotional memory. The occipital lobe is one that processes all the visual information such as color, shape, and distance. The cerebellum, which is the part of the brain that is in charge of motor control actions and also involves cognitive functions such as attention and language.
The brainstem is the one that controls the essential basic functions for maintaining life, which includes breathing, regulating body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure. It also controls eye movement and swallowing. It's a very important part of the brain because it connects the cerebral hemispheres to the spinal cord.
The brain has 3 layers of connective tissue. Dura mater is the outer layer and consists of dense connective tissue. Lying under the dura can find the arachnoid layer, which is made of dense connective tissue. Spaces within the arachnoid are filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Finally, located at the center, we find the pia mater, which consists of loose connective tissue on the surface of the brain, and lining channels that penetrate the brain, covering the vascular system.
Two common diseases of the brain are the brain aneurysm and anxiety.
A brain aneurysm is a bulging wall area in the wall of the artery that supplies blood to the brain. In most cases, a brain aneurysm causes no symptoms and goes unnoticed. In rare cases, the brain aneurysm ruptures, releasing blood into the skull and causing stroke. Some preventions are learned by family history, recognize the symptoms of an aneurysm that are changing vision, having a dilated pupil, and headaches.
Anxiety is a general term for several disorders that cause nervousness, fear, and worry. These disorders affect how a child feels and behaves, and this can manifest real physical symptoms. This anxiety is caused by how parents treat their children. For example, there are some parents that are very protective and strict that make the child frustrated. Some preventions for parents to avoid anxiety on their children are emphasized with them.
To benefit the brain, it is recommendable to eat food that contains omega-3. There are 3 major omega-3s, ALA, EPA, and DHA, each with distinct health benefits. DHA is the one that benefits brain, eye, and the heart health throughout life.
Body doesn't produce DHA we need to consume it through food, beverage, or supplements, such as tuna, salmon, mackerel, and turtle. It can also be found in plants, foods like flax seeds, walnuts, and canola oil, and soy. The current recommendations for omega-3 intake of DHA ranges from 0.8 to 1.1 grams per day. To absorb it, it's transported to the liver and later stored in the adipose tissue.
The way we see the brain has improved. There are different studies trying to explain how it works and trying to prove the way humans live. These are examples of that studies.
A study made by Olga Kazan tries to explain how the woman and male brains are different by analyzing the MRIs of 949 people, aged from 8 to 22 years. She found out that the woman's brain seems to have stronger connections between their logical and intuitive parts, and that their brain is more interconnected compared with the men's brain. She also came to the conclusion that sex differences have implications for how the brain works and how we can fix it.
Other study used video footage. Videos were shown to people for 2 hours, and then by analyzing their brain activity, they got as a result that the presented clip and the clip reconstructed from the brain activity match. All of these based on the person's brain waves using a special software. And these software programs become more complex. We became closer to accurate visualization and recording our dreams or thoughts. With this same technology, we know that it's possible for people with paralysis can control robotic arms using brain computer. And also by reading the minds of people who cannot communicate verbally, such as stroke victims, improving their way of living. So, with all of this, we can conclude that science fiction is becoming science reality, but there are things that are still a mystery.